and she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit.
Snoop Dogg is a cultural icon that's bigger than just hip hop music. Not only is he a pillar in West Coast rap, he's a pillar all over the world. With a TikTok following with over 30 million followers, Snoop Dogg is still relevant to this day, and many people tune in every day to see what he posts on Instagram or any other social media that he's a part of. So when he goes on to the podcast, you know people are still listening. Just because Snoop Dogg is in his 50s, it doesn't mean he still doesn't have pull. So everything that he talks about is met with scrutiny. And speaking of scrutiny, the last podcast he went to really got people talking.
I took my grandson to see what was the movie with Buzz Light?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
the new Buzz. The Lightyear. I think it's called Lightyear.
Yeah, with Keke Palmer's in that movie.
Okay.
She plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Keke's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit. I didn't come in for this. I just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she had a baby. They both women's. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with. So it's like, I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like, y'all throwing me in the middle of shit that I don't have an answer for.
Now, in this instance, Snoop Dogg talks about a time where he took his child to see a particular film, all right? And in this particular film in which Keke Palmer was doing a voiceover for, his child saw a scene in which the cartoon character was in a lesbian relationship and had a baby. And of course, the grandchild asked him, how can a woman have a baby? So Snoop Dogg brushed it off and didn't explain it because he was shook. It wasn't very much that he thought he could say at that time. And he said simply, I'm afraid to go to the movies anymore. And Snoop Dogg said this because he simply just didn't know how to convey the message over to his grandchild. And of course, this has caused a lot of criticism.
Once again, I learned that I dislike Snoop Dogg again. So not only is Snoop Dogg a little because of all the Suge Knight stuff and the Trump stuff and all those things, but today it comes out that Snoop Dogg is afraid of going to the movies. And why is Snoop Dogg afraid of going to the movies? Because he went to a Disney film where a same-sex couple kissed in it. And then his grandson asked about that because it's natural when you see things that kids will ask about. But instead of educating his grandson and taking the proper approach, he is a bigoted ass about it. I'm afraid of going to the movies. Well, I remember when white folks were real afraid of listening to Snoop Dogg's music and everyone else's music that came out of Compton and gangster rap era at that time.
So this person is saying, listen, Snoop Dogg should have taken the opportunity to educate his grandson. Now, Snoop Dogg is from California, just like me. He understands the entertainment industry. There are a lot of gays in Hollywood, even if he may not be gay. So what this person is saying, here's an opportunity to educate your grandson that, listen, gay people are in the world, all right? Like, this is something that's a reality, especially on the West Coast and all over America. Gay people do exist, so why don't you just tell your grandchild that at this particular time? But that wasn't the only criticism.
The fact that a alleged gangster, pimp, murderer, and at some point dealer, allegedly, this is the story they tell through their music, I don't know, but this is who he was back in the 90s. He was on trial for murder at some point. He was in Girls Gone Wild. He was videoed online at some point with a very young looking Selena Powell doing some, things.
So this lady attacks Snoop Dogg's past. She's saying, listen, you're the same guy that was doing corn. You're the same guy that was doing gangster rap. You're doing all of these different things. And if your grandson knew about who you were or who you portrayed yourself to be, you could explain that to your grandson. But when it comes to the gay character inside of the cartoon or the movie, you don't want to really explain what's going on. So therefore, you are a hypocrite. But then she also says this.
And I understand that y'all feel like that's adult and that's separate from a kid's movie. But kids can know that there are gay people, y'all. A lot of the times people don't even know who they are themselves, but they are so judgmental of other people. It makes me feel like y'all's obsession with seeing queerness or gayness as something that is disgusting and to be hidden from children, it makes me feel like something is really wrong with y'all.
Again, this points to the same position. Like, why don't you understand that there are gay people in the society? What is the problem with that? And that is a point that both of them are trying to make. They're not trying to say, actually, in my opinion, hey, you got to agree with what's going on. But listen, you need to just educate your grandchild. Listen, this is what is happening, okay? And this is what's occurring in the world today. That's what they're saying. Instead of going to say that you're afraid to go to the movies because you're afraid to hit this reality. But then I want to talk about the other point. Not so long ago, I was on a podcast with this gentleman, and we ended up talking about the differences between Africa and America and sexuality on the continent of Africa. And this was a very important conversation.
See, the beautiful thing about Africa, they never superimpose their stuff on anyone else. If I had a religion, it was my religion. Now, you know Africa very well. In Africa, our sexual matters are private. We don't even kiss in public. But now, the Europeans are arguing and saying, let go out there and express themselves and do whatever they want. And we are saying, but we keep our things private.
Yeah.
If someone is gay, let them go into their house,
And
do
be
whatever
gay.
they do. We don't want. So they just keep it secret. It even goes further. The homosexuality agenda, when the Europeans started seeing their population declining, they knew that the biggest population always dominates. The Asians were growing so fast, the Africans were growing so fast. So the only solution was homosexuality.
Now, here the brother is talking about sexuality in Africa, okay? He's saying this. In Africa, we are not trying to force a religion on somebody, and I think he really means Uganda because you're referring to this. Forcing somebody's religion on people, we typically try to stay private with that. Sexuality, even holding and kissing in public, especially in Uganda, is something that you typically don't see a lot. If a person happens to live a gay lifestyle, and I'm in the country where being gay is against the law and it can be punished up till death. This is the law. It's not really enforced, but you can get in trouble. Let that person do that in the privacy of their own home. But to introduce it to me and to try to introduce it to my children, that's different. And I think this is what is going on with people like Snoop Dogg. Now, I don't think that Snoop Dogg has a problem with gay people. I mean, he's a Democrat. You know, he wanted to vote for Kamala Harris. I believe he endorsed her, although he ended up going to Trump and, basically supporting him in his inauguration. But the reality is that he doesn't want to see his grandkid basically being taught homosexuality or being introduced to LGBTQ concepts in a movie theater. All right. Now, let me just say this. When I was growing up as a child, I didn't see gays on cartoons. At a certain point, you'll come to find out about people in same-sex relationships. You'll find out people that are in polyamorous relationships. But, those kind of things are not put out on TV, right? And when you get there, you'll find out at a certain time, but people don't want their kids exposed to it. And let me just tell you what I mean. In San Francisco, I think it was like 2 years ago, there was a gay parade, and there were some guys out there who were doing some sexual lewd dancing, and then you had children out that were seeing this, okay? And a lot of people were really, really, really disgusted by what they saw, all right? There were some talks of urination on other people and things like that were going on, and people felt that this is something that we don't want our kids to see, even with certain people in concerts. Let me just say, certain artists, people just doing a lot. Lizzo, for example, she's not gay or anything, but just sexual lewd content, you just don't want your kids to see it. And even if it's just a kiss on a cartoon, cartoon, that's something that you might not want to see. And although that might not have been, or that might have been PG-13, but then again, you see a whole bunch of other stuff associated with the LGBTQ that goes more extreme. And that's the problem that people have, is the extreme stuff. Now, what he saw might have been a little bit too much. And again, the LGBTQ couple on the Lightyear, but I think that it shouldn't be forced, right? That's what they're saying. This shouldn't be forced on my kid. Like, I shouldn't have to go to the movie theater, and the movie theater is pushing this norm on me, on my society, on my kids, because I grew up in a time where, listen, if I wanted to watch a cartoon, the normal roles of man and wife are in the cartoon. And people complain about it with TV shows. I live in Africa, like I said, in Uganda. You look at DSTV, you look at most Nigerian comedies or Ugandan comedies, you don't see homosexuals in these roles. Now, that might not represent the real truth about sexuality in Africa, but you don't see it. What is really preserved are conservative roles, which are man, woman in a heterosexual sense. And the reason why that is the case, because most people identify as being heterosexual around the world, all right? Gay people are LGBTQ people. You know, they're a large percentage of the world, but they're not the majority of the world, okay? And then some people are religious, and that's something we need to talk about. People have the right to be devout. Most people around the world, and this is a very important thing that I want to talk about, are Christian or Muslim, okay? You have very few people who are atheists. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, if I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim, then homosexuality in any regards is most likely going to have an effect against my religion. It's against the rules. So you're pushing something on me, and I'm a part of the devout, okay? I know you have some churches, one-offs, who believe that, okay, you know, homosexuality is okay, but for the most part, it's tolerated, but most people believe who are in the devout, homosexuality is a sin. If you're Muslim, homosexuality is a sin, okay? Doesn't mean that you hate the person. There are a lot of sins in the Bible, but being homosexual is one of them, all right? And if I'm really in the devout and you're pushing this, then what am I telling my child? I'm telling my child that I'm introducing something to you that I didn't choose, that I'm telling my child this is not normal according to what we believe. And that's the issue. And then people just don't know how to explain it, because people say, hey, this is a man and this is a woman. And then you have all of these pronouns and you have all of these different things. And people are confused. I'm confused. I mean, I haven't lived in America in over 10 years. If I were to come back and I hear all these pronouns and all this stuff, I just know man and a woman. I don't know the his, her, and the other things going on, because again, it confuses me. And so kids are confused. All right. So if you're raising up your child in that way, and then you're presenting something different, of course, people don't know what to say to that, you know? And so now parents and grandparents are being forced to answer things that they can't answer. And you're saying, well, they should educate it. Well, how do you educate your kid on that when you told your kid babies come from man and a woman, and that's how they get there? And if a baby comes from a woman and a woman, well then, okay, well, yeah. So basically she went and got an artificial insemination and like a kid just can't understand it, and it's too hard for somebody to say it. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy L Jackson back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.